It's an honor to be here with you and with the broader audience around the world. My name is John Dyck. I'm the Chief Executive Officer here at CESMII. And just a brief outline of who we are. We're the U.S. Institute focused on driving and accelerating the adoption of smart manufacturing as a means to becoming more productive and more competitive as a manufacturing nation. Our topic for this panel is building manufacturing AI that earns executive trust. This is obviously a huge topic, top of mind for most manufacturers, and because of that, the broader ecosystem around has very quickly stepped in to serve this strategic interest. This is a genuine source of enthusiasm and even hope, but also of concern. There's so many unknowns, and this is a set of challenges and opportunities that is sweeping virtually every aspect of our world, from our personal lives to our work lives, and obviously moving at the speed of light, it seems. And so many things to address, so many things to learn, so much to benefit from. But our objective today, with this august panel, is to examine manufacturing AI specifically, and to do so through a framework that kind of touches on people and process and technology. I have several fantastic panelists with me here today, including Hugo Vaz, the co-founder of Coreflux, David Lincoln, an executive leader at ABB. We have Neil Smith from Schneider Electric, and of course myself. I'll do my very best to manage the conversation in a way that's relevant and practical, that's the right mix of aspirational but also practical, and I'm confident that you all will have a great time and both learning from and engaging in this dialogue. So our intent is that we spend roughly 45 minutes having a dialogue amongst the panelists here, and then we'll have time for engaging with you all as the audience. So that is our intent. So with that said, let me turn to our first panelist and ask you, David, to introduce yourself and your organization, and perhaps touch on the issue of executive leadership and measuring whether a manufacturing AI initiative is valuable, is the right place to invest. David?
Yeah, thanks a lot, John, and hi everyone. Great to be here today. So yeah, my name's David Lincoln. I work for ABB in the Measurement Analytics division. I'm the head of digital. We produce a range of measurement devices from physical measurements, pressure, temperature, flow, through to analytical measurements, measuring the composition of gases, liquids, and solids, as well as force measurements for measuring in rolling mills. I've been working in digital for the past 15 years, and basically during that time, we've developed a range of asset health monitoring solutions to support our devices, both our service teams and our customers. And we've integrated a lot of AI technologies into those solutions over the years. Additionally, I work on AI adoption internally within my company and support some programs there as well. So this is a topic that's very close to my heart. And I think when it comes to measuring the value of AI initiatives, ultimately this is no different to any other OPEX initiative. You need to identify the thing you're trying to improve, or the problem you're trying to solve. Then you would first measure your KPI. So I don't know, let's say it's a quality throughput issue. What is the current throughput and what you want to get to? And then you would look at how AI could be used to help improve those KPIs. And basically, I think the key difference with doing an AI initiative compared to a more traditional OPEX project is the amount of time it takes to deliver the result. It often takes 2 to 3 times the effort to deliver an AI solution that is trusted and working compared to a more traditional project because you have that experimentation phase as well. So I think for me, you treat it as a normal initiative, do your homework, calculate your return of investment, and then if it looks good, then go for it. Thank you.
Outstanding, David. I appreciate that very pragmatic perspective. Hugo, would you do the same? Take a moment to introduce yourself, your organization, and then perhaps talk to us a little bit about how a typical integration project starts with an intent, but that intent often gets lost by the time data reaches a model. So why does that happen so consistently? Hugo, why don't you take it from there?
Yeah, thank you, John. So actually, first to introduce myself and actually thank to be here on the panel, to be invited. So Coreflux and myself, I'm one of the co-founders, acting as the CEO, as the current CEO of the company. Coreflux is in the base an MQTT broker, and the concept behind this that we are expanding on acting more like than a broker. So we kind of focus on not only connecting and translation from different protocols as a software, but also to connect to other systems and build something that you're able to create an information, let's say, unified in space. So company started in 2022 working not only for the manufacturing sector, but also for the energy sector. Now we cover more sectors like logistics and in some projects with for the financial sector. So I've been working on, let's say, on the IIoT world since 2010, 2011, without knowing the name of what it was. And I've been working on that since my days as a system integrator. We kind of developed Coreflux more based on what was missing from the market in a system integrator perspective. So the idea for us was to translate everything into one single protocol, one single spot where to have that. And I come from that place, as you can see behind me. I come from a more technical perspective. So answering the question, going back to the question, actually, David kind of provided two clues. And those two clues, I think they are quite important. It's very pragmatic, yes, about what he was answering. But there is something that intention, when you talk about intention, there is some vision behind it. And vision is where you usually want to go. Intent is something that you already created your first concrete step toward making something happen. So when David was talking about provide and select the KPIs, already there was some kind of knowledge there, some kind of idea that you wanted to abstract. And the drift that I keep finding on this whole point of digital transformation is that most C-level leaders, they kind of look at technology that they are able to trust because they see that every cycle that is occurring, especially nowadays with AI, are getting shorter, but more demanding in terms of knowing technology. And managers are kept by their peers. So if they are able to communicate and justify and define proper objectives, and it comes to the point of the objectives. Most of them, honestly, don't have the right answer, which is fair because the ground keeps moving underneath them. And this is the first thing that I think that's why there is this drift. So you see this drift through navigating to that state of art. So the project is kind of becoming a way to learn and to adapt what they need to understand. And it becomes a challenge for the company and also for the suppliers. So we kind of suffer from that gap. That is why I think that companies, the companies like us, like technology providers, they need to start kind of providing this adaptability as a service. Let me give you this small joke. because we need to sell something that is not rigid and strict, that they are able to use it and transform it, because the client is actually learning what they need to have as a clear objective. So consultancy, teaching, that's something that needs to be part of it. So it's something that the tech companies now have to carry somehow, for the companies. So that's why I see that this drift is there, and why it happens. And usually it's because it's a transformation, a digital transformation, is something that is not known for the company. So the objectives probably usually are there to be found. There is a clear vision, but intent is not purpose, not the clear objective. So that's why I think this occurs.
So could you maybe speak briefly to what counsel, what advice you would give to an organization in light of that drift, the reality that this is transformative and it is so new. There isn't a lot of depth and sort of muscle memory of how we do these sorts of things,
Yeah.
at least in this specific space. So what guidance would you give to a manufacturer who's experiencing this drift?
So, first of all, the first thing I will recommend usually is to clear out that vision, that idea, where they want to reach, what is the clear definition for them as the place they want to position their own company. And this usually defines the digital transformation. So this is the first thing. And they need to provide this to the company as something that the company intends to do. The issue that I usually see happening is that is not well known within the company, and it becomes an intent that is provided to a supplier. I will say that should be it needs to be to all the stakeholders, so to everyone that it's on board with the project. Second thing, that's it's a more recommendation for leaders, is that they are kept in check by a clear definition of objective. I think that adaptation is something key on this, and this needs to be englobed in all the supply chain, let's say. So even to the supplier, to the internal customers, and also to the persons that are working on this. And usually companies, especially all the companies that are, say, Forbes 100, they don't have this capability of adapting. They are most of the time audited by the way they structure a plan. And in here, probably the rule is don't follow plans, but plan always. So I will probably recommend this two approach in order to find the steps in order to reach the point they want to reach. So by defining objectives across every step they go.
Very good. So one of our panelists, Neil, is from Schneider Electric, is experiencing some technical difficulties. So we'll hopefully have him join us here soon and pose these questions for him as well. But in the meantime, Paul, if I could ask you to put up the first poll for the audience, and there we go. Thank you. The question is, how would you rate your organization's workforce readiness to adopt and operate physical AI in manufacturing operations? Three simple choices. Give you just a moment to fill this out. Very good. So we'll move on to kind of another part of the conversation. But I would like to say that one of the really interesting dynamics that we see here at CESMII is the disconnect, because AI has sort of become such a major and strategic initiative and so much of a manufacturing organization's discretionary or capital spend is being turned in this direction. Excuse me. Um, there's a bit of a fire, aim, ready sort of mentality, and a lot of AI is being implemented without a clear strategy. And so, in many ways, that's a concern, but it's also a significant opportunity. This is how companies learn. This is how they get started quickly without too much navel gazing, as we say at times. But the reality is we do have to build disciplines, and I think the reality is too that what this focus on AI-driven outcomes. After all, AI is a tool. It's a tool that's the most powerful tool I think we've ever seen. It's a tool that has the potential to create significant outcomes. But what it's done is shine a spotlight on the fact that we do have on the people and the process and the technology side, we have some significant gaps. We have some significant skills that we're missing. Our data foundations are fairly shaky, given 3 decades of proliferating data silos and stovepipe architectures, and obviously that's a massive concern. But I do think that a systematic approach to focusing on data foundations and focusing on, at least on the technology side, focusing on the data foundations, on the people side, focusing on educating and equipping and allaying some of the fears by getting them involved in meaningful and relevant ways. And from a process perspective, doing their best to connect the company's strategy to every single desired output and outcome, as you were referring to, as both of you were referring to, I think is going to be super, super important. So, David, I'll turn to you and ask you, what is the best way to scale manufacturing AI from pilot to enterprise adoption? This is the question that's foremost on most people's mind. We've been talking kind of ad nauseum about pilot purgatory in the fourth industrial revolution era. We seem to be stepping into some of the same challenges here. Talk to us a little bit about the challenges that we see and need to overcome around scaling from pilot to broad scale adoption.
Yeah, no, thanks, John. And look, I agree with everything you just said there. I think this is not just a technology challenge, and ultimately, let's say you've already done your piloting and you've proven the KPIs that you want that solution to deliver on a small scale. The challenges in bringing that through to production and enterprise level really goes beyond the technology layer. It's about how do you integrate that into your daily operations. So, are the operating procedures that you've written and probably are getting audited on an annual basis to check that you're following, the right quality management systems and so on. Are these processes designed for AI? Are they able to include this new technology, which is probabilistic in nature, gives you a confidence level of, I don't know, ideally 100%, but sometimes it's less than that. Are you able to adopt that? So really it's about developing those procedures so that institutionally within your organization, the new technology can be adopted. And then it's a people challenge. I mean, ultimately, people adopt new technologies when they trust it. So have we brought the people on board, the engineers within the organization, so they're happy that they can trust the results coming from that new solution? And it's also not only about trust. I mean, does that new solution create additional work for the workforce? So it may be a trusted solution, but actually it's identifying problems that then somebody has to fix. So really the best way to have a solution adopted is to have it as a trustworthy technology that people understand and can see how it's going to improve things, but also it helps them in their daily work. And typically you see adoption curves are much quicker when it's seen as a trusted source that improves your daily life. And I think finally it's about having senior management fully behind the program. So recognizing that we need to educate staff, we need people across the organization who are really championing these new AI technologies and helping to promote and bring them into the organization. I think, as you said, it's not just the technology, and really you need to bring it into the full way of working to be successful.
I think that's a really, really important set of ideas and perspectives, David. I'm gonna make an observation, and I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts or your reaction to this. I spent my career prior to coming here to CESMII in the automation and information space at Rockwell Automation, responsible for GE's manufacturing software business at one point. I left the sort of large company world to help raise some venture capital, build a software startup, which was acquired. And so all my life, I've been in the kind of building software products, seeing them deployed, and obviously, sustained over the course of many years, as these are very sticky solutions. Um, but I've always seen that from the technology side, we pay lip service to the people side and the change management side, and then as you step onto the other side of the world, you work with the larger strategy consultants, the McKinseys, the Deloittes, the EYs, Accentures, et cetera. They're focused on selling ideas and people time, man hours and people hours, and they sort of don't focus on the technology. In fact, both sides, without intending to, tend to undermine the things that they're not compensated to sell, which is human nature. We're kind of all coin operated to some degree. And so you have the manufacturing organization kind of stuck in the middle. You're being sold technology for technology's sake. You're being sold strategy and change management without a meaningful, thoughtful approach to the technology itself, and the manufacturer's kind of stuck in the middle. Is that reflective of your experience as well, or how would you comment on that?
I mean, I think, as you said, there's been this sort of pilot purgatory phase where there's been activities of trying to just do 5-10 years ago it was about connectivity and then building dashboards. Then we move beyond that level. I think it has to be driven from the problem you're trying to solve, because ultimately this is to solve these problems. It goes beyond the way we've always worked, or we would have already solved them in the end. So I think these different approaches from the technology side and from the more consulting arm come together, and you need both, and you need to recognize that the technology is the tool, and it's people who define and design the solutions that deliver the end result. And I think to what Hugo was saying, it's really about what's your transformation goal. Is it you're trying to deal with process optimization? Is it that you're trying to improve productivity, output, skill set shortages? Whatever is that challenge, you need to then look at the technology you need that can help you in solving those problems and improving your total business. So no, I think it's a difficult, it's a good question, and there's not a straight answer there, but I think it lends itself to focusing on both the people and the technology side.
Yeah, thanks, David. Great response. So, Hugo, I'll turn to you and have, I guess, a similar question for you. When manufacturers talk to you about AI, what are they actually describing as the problem underneath it? You've both been sort of aiming at this issue and would love to hear your direct thoughts on
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead. Thanks.
Yes, sorry. So actually, it comes back to what you mentioned, actually. AI, in fact, is a tool. And it comes back to the first answer that I gave, which is we need an end goal. So an AI is not that end goal. And somehow today, we keep having those things kind of mixed, and it gets kind of blurry when you're able to talk with a client because uh, they kind of define that, and the market is kind of putting money over that concept where AI presents itself as, let's say, as the final automation layer, like some kind of destination, but it isn't. It's a tool, very important tool, something that I think I agree with you, John, 100% of what you mentioned. So, tools for us humans are it's the thing that distinguishes above all other animals. Going all the way back to fire, we always use tools to serve specific functions that forces us to create what we have evolution. So we were able to adapt on nature to scale ourselves beyond what we could do with our own hands. So that's what tools do. And for an organization, AI is a tool that's able to provide that to the company. But you need to know what is the goal that you want to achieve with that tool. So the conversation should turn into something like we need a specific outcome for the business, and IE might be part of it, not we need AI, because actually there is a meme for that, all a small drawing of all of the CEOs saying we need AI, and that's something that the market is kind of feeding, but AI should not become the objective, let's say. Um, I think that the company is already losing its transformation if it focus again on a specific tool or a specific process. It needs to focus on the clear objective, and that's the way that things are going to evolve. That's the way things will happen because there is a clear objective that you are able to work with AI, whether it is what was mentioned by David, just a simple predictive maintenance, for instance, that you're able to adapt any kind of issue that you find on the machine, so you're able to use better your equipment, or even just simple forecasts about the production that you're making. Those simple things have an objective and a potential outcome defined, let's say.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
in fact, actually, you gave my answer, let's say. I agree 100% with your perspective.
Very good. So, Paul, as we transition to our next topic, could you throw up poll number 2 for us? How would you rate the readiness of your manufacturing process and your operational workflows to support large-scale deployments of physical AI? I'll give you a few seconds to respond to that. Okay. Would like to transition a little bit to talk a little bit more about the technology side of this. I mentioned before that, at least from our perspective, what we see in the US is a massive proliferation in virtually every manufacturing plant or enterprise from the Fortune 100 all the way up to the small, medium manufacturers. Just this proliferation of solutions that were developed to solve one use case, one problem at a time. And over the years, over the decades, we've just propagated these data silos, and there has been no center of gravity to sort of bring some of these architectures and some of these standards together. Standardization has been, frankly, a very very poorly adopted approach here in the US. I do recognize that in much of Europe and in parts of Asia that that's different. There's more of an affinity for and a tolerance for the complexities that come with standardization, but the bar has been, I think, too high for most manufacturers to do that well. And so we have a mindset that says we're going to solve problems one use case at a time. We have a technical ecosystem that says we've got a solution for you one use case at a time. And the outcome is plants that are solving problems with shadow IT, what the corporate team would call shadow IT or OT. You've got corporate sanctioned systems that are proliferated, but as stovepipe architectures. And AI just comes in and says, we want that data, we want the context, and the plants say, well, we've got the data, it's in all these systems, and no standard context. There's no unified approach to these systems as a whole. And so, 10 years ago, it was the approach to the data lake, just stick a giant straw into the plant, suck the data up, and of course, great outcomes are going to show up kind of magically, and that never happened. And so, David, I'll turn back to you and say, if an organization struggles with fragmented data, what are the practical steps that you can take to adopt AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think as you've pointed out, every organization suffers with fragmented data. I mean, there are not many greenfield plants out there which have been built in the last, few years. Most of them are 10, 20, 30-year old. So they're geographically distributed. They have equipment that might be 10, 20, 30 years old within them. So, I mean, it's a reality. And I think then to go to a quick win, it's about really, are there areas within the plant where you do have some capability to build a solution? So, I mean, one of the examples we have is we produce emissions monitoring systems, which are typically at the top of chimney stacks. So, these 10-story high chimney stacks. And quite often there's very, very limited connectivity available. So then for us, it's been about, okay, can we create gateways that are cellular connected gateways that we can then use to connect the data from those devices to cloud, so that we can then build a AI solution which is able to support the operation and identify problems before they come out. So, I mean, I think there are that what I've just described there. There are lots of cases like that out there where you could identify parts of your plant that have devices in them or parts of systems that are quite intelligent. There is good data available that's ready to be harvested and utilized, and either you're developing your own solutions locally or you're developing solutions with third parties, original equipment manufacturers or others. So, and I think the beauty of the sort of stepwise approach is that once you've developed that solution and you've integrated it and you've seen the value and the results that it can deliver, hopefully the savings that you're generating through those types of solutions will help to justify further projects where you can integrate more of your plants. And I guess eventually, this data lake is a needed thing. It's just the way you go about it. As you said, the approach of let's build a data lake and hope we can find some value in the data is the wrong start point. It should be what are the quick wins we can do, and then can we eventually build that data lake to generate the value overall. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, very much, David. Thank you. I saw a question here from Andrea about what frameworks do you recommend for proving AI return on investment early enough to gain executive buy-in? And I'll ask both you, Hugo, and David to comment on that. But I would say that we as a manufacturing community, we need to temper our approach to solve the next one problem with the idea of a larger strategy and roadmap. I would say that 99.9% of manufacturers that we've seen and been exposed to over the past number of years do not have a digital or a smart manufacturing or an Industry 4.0 strategy that ties back to the business strategy. And that is back to the gap between the big strategy consultants that'll go to the corner office and charge $7 million and show up with 41 awesome slides that articulate a strategy, but the execution of that strategy becomes just a massive gap. And so there needs to be, and this is something that CESMII recognized and has created and is giving back to the community, a way to develop a more systematic assessment of where you are in the appropriate sort of capabilities and functions and methodologies, your as-is state, and then actually go from there to build a roadmap in a vendor agnostic and in a thoughtful way, actually building a roadmap based on the assessment and your priorities as an organization. And so, yeah, you can go and solicit funding for a pilot, and that's important. But I think underneath that, there needs to be a more systematic, a more thoughtful approach that helps leadership understand the value of these things, of these initiatives, and that helps the frontline workers, the folks in the plants, the folks that are actually going to be engaging with these systems, do so in a way that solves their needs and reflects their priorities. And so this kind of more systematic approach, yeah, you want to build a plane while it's flying, but you also want to develop a more strategic connection between the company's strategy and how you're investing in these things. So you're not pausing at month 6 of your pilot because senior leadership lost the stomach for and doesn't want to fund the next pilot or didn't like what they saw in the first 6 months. So I would just with hopefully you can sense the passion I feel for this topic, the notion that there has to be this blend, this hybrid approach to, yeah, let's go solve some problems, but also work to develop a more strategic approach to these things. So I'll turn to you, Hugo. A lot of plants have data, a little of it's usable. What separates a data pipeline that's just moving bytes from one that's actually carrying meaning?
Okay, so actually, I think I can join both questions, let's say, because this is kind of aligned. So first thing I want to say is that at least the one, what frameworks do you recommend from Rajendra, that I was actually listening to your answer. I think that one of the things that everything is assumed is that the data is there and it's contextualized and trustworthy. And in practice, I will say that it's not. And I think, John, it comes a little bit to what you're saying about standardization. So yes, it's true. In Europe, we are more, let's say, aligned for that, but it doesn't mean that we have, let's say, proper uniformization and data that is contextualized across, let's say, one single place where you are able to check, okay, this is my system. So the data layer is the first part of my recommendation to adopt any kind of framework. If you don't have that, you are kind of jumping one step. So it comes back to your question, which is how can I get a data pipeline that's just not moving bytes from one place to the other? Yes, in fact, if that is happening, it means that our data pipeline without a purpose is in the end wasted. It's wasted bytes, wasted computation, and also wasted attention. So that's why actually we have something that is different within our product, because we are focused on that. We call it language of things, but that's on a side note. But in the end, it's something that we want to really create from that data information, because the only way to be able to expand any knowledge is that you have information in order to make any kind of decision. So there are three different layers that you need to think, which is data, that's zeros and ones, let's say, trues or false, 14, 37, an alarm. Information, it's something that is already providing where it happened, when it happened, and what happened. And based on a couple of those informations, you're able to create knowledge. A given fact, for instance, if I have a machine that's all the time sending a true in a certain output, let's say, or input, and that input becomes an alarm that occurs on every afternoon where the temperature has reached, I don't know, 37 degrees, I'm jumping here, it's probably that that you start to know that in your process, that's an issue on your machine. So that's starting to become knowledge because you're able to study that information. And you're able to decide, should I repair it? Should I fix it? Should I try to understand more? So that's what should happen on a business side. This is, let's say, the upstream that needs to happen, and not to focus on the plumbing. And most of the times we are focusing on connecting the pipeline, putting all the connections, but it becomes something without purpose. And it goes back to the first questions that we had during the panel. So we need to adapt. And in order to adapt, we need that kind of information in order to decide what should happen. And the pipeline, I think that's actually something that it's very important. And relating this to AI, and talking about physical AI, without this kind of information, there is no way to create a layer of abstraction that works upon this pipeline if you don't have everything, let's say, properly contextualize it. If the information you have, it's only numbers, or even if it's not properly contextualized or informed, you end up having wrong decisions. And that's the first thing I think we should follow. I see a couple of opinions here, and some people on the chat talking about, and sorry for this, but just to jump in, if you ever seen a project that was canceled, for instance, and or paused. Actually, we did that because if you don't have the proper information and your data layer, you are not able to jump into this AI projects because you're trying to see the end of the movie by not going into the line, buy the ticket, do the full purpose of watching a movie on the theater. So it's very important that this part gets done well. In fact, actually, David told us at the beginning of the panel that usually this takes 2 to 3 times more time. And it's true, because you need to provide a good, let's say, a good baseline of data in order to make any kind of decision. So if you are not doing the first step the right way, then the other 2 or 3 steps that you need to do that will consume more time will end up on becoming waste. So yes, this is something that is important. I think that standardization, as you mentioned, is also something that occurs, but at the same time, it's not effective as it presents itself, something that companies actually need to go back to the first sentence, adapt. So they need to check what they want to use, why they need to do what they need to do, and act accordingly to their vision and to the clear objectives that they are building in order to make this transformation. Because if you look back in 15 years or 20 years, all these steps that we have, like the pilots that we have talking about, Industry 4.0, everything that has occurred, we still have to do those steps. We still need to connect to the machines. We still need to collect data. We still need to transform those steps. Even with AI, you still need to do them. It means that they will be normal. It will be a normal process, but those are steps that will occur. So if you, in 20 or 30 years, look back to this, and I know that we are really living this AI thing and it's becoming something, it will be normal for adopting and doing these kind of steps in order to have physical AI or any kind of automation based on AI for your company. To be perfectly normal, you need to connect, transform, aggregate data. You need to build a pipeline. Without that, you're not able to do anything, let's say.
Very good. So we're going to transition into engaging with the audience. As we do that, perhaps we can put up the third poll question here. How would you rate your organization's OT data foundation and data infrastructure readiness for large-scale physical AI deployment in manufacturing operations? Low, medium, or high? I'm gonna identify the first question here and turn to both David and Hugo to respond. But after that, perhaps David and then Hugo, you can each select a question from the list here and respond based on what you think is strategic and important. The question I'll select here, and thank you for your responses. The question I'll select here is the reference to or the recognition that the biggest holdup for our team is deploying sensors and data collection devices to get real-time data, and that includes physical networks themselves, right? I'm guessing the questioner would agree to that. From the research we've done, over 80% of the plant floor assets, machines, equipment is not on a network that can be pinged from the enterprise HQ, for example. So this is usually an enormous obstacle that is slow to solve. A lot of hardware has to be in place. A lot of networking has to be in place. The question is for industrial automation in which many legacy systems are in place, what are solutions your team has implemented to expedite this process? I'll speak briefly from a CESMII perspective and then ask David and Hugo to respond. But interoperability, from a technology perspective, interoperability is absolutely in the top three challenges that need to be solved as an industry. How can these stovepipe architectures, how can these data silos become interoperable, and how can we develop strategies going forward so that the next use case you invest in doesn't propagate or doesn't result in yet another data silo that some future team is going to have to deal with and try to address. And so this notion of interoperability through a common manufacturing platform API, if anyone's interested, you can go to i3x.dev, and you'll see more details about this. This is a massive global industry-wide effort in which around 50 vendors are already participating to build this level of interoperability through this API into their manufacturing platforms, and something that I think you'll learn to appreciate as adoption increases. So that would be my perspective, the focus on interoperability, getting away from propagating data silos and stovepipe architectures. David, how would you respond to that? And then of course, Hugo.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of elements to that. I think first of all, if you don't have data in the first place, then you'll probably need to invest in some measurement technologies to be able to get some data to enhance your process. I think that's one element. That I mean, we have inferential modeling platforms where we do some soft sensing solutions as well. So I mean that is possible, but you still need to have some physical measurements there to be able to run those. I think beyond the measurements, yeah, we also are members of all of these standardization bodies. So our devices typically support the But of course, we go with industry, so we support the protocols that industry is using. And quite often we see, we sell a lot of heart enabled devices. That's one industrial communication protocol that is very common. Moving towards Ethernet APL. Ultimately, when everything is on Ethernet, things are simpler, especially if you're following using protocols like Profinet and OPC UA as an example. But quite often when I visit plants, which is fairly regularly, I see heart-enabled devices, and the only network connectivity is actually 4 to 20 milliamp. So there's a lot of stranded data out there, and there is a need to do these kind of connectivity projects to access that data. And we've run projects in ABB and developed solutions to tunnel through control systems to access heart data, and we have some software capabilities to do that. And ultimately, you can't get away from needing access to the data and having the connectivity in place before you can get to the stage of then harvesting the value from the data. That's a necessary evil, unfortunately.
Hugo?
So this question for us, we kind of sit on a middle, let's say. So what we are currently doing in order to answer this question is that we actually position ourselves as a way to receive all the data from multiple protocols. That's why we actually work a lot with legacy systems. So that's something that's for us. It started as a pain because we kind of wanted to translate everything, all the protocols, and become a place, let's say, a single point of truth where you have your data and your real-time data, not historian or database, but a way that you're able to kind of access. But at the same time, you need to be able to transform. So because in some machines it might be Celsius, and another one you have the temperature of Fahrenheit or imperial units or meters. So you need to have something that is able to transform, and we also do that. So for us, it's very important to translate everything and then aggregate into what we call models. So that's the thing that we do to expedite information. And when it comes to E3X, or for us, it actually makes sense because it's a way to have another way to connect in an open way. So there is a real way to create, not to have multiple silos, but to have a way to have one API to connect, and at the same time, one single source of truth. So I actually know the project and quite excited about the project. But in fact, we need companies like ABB that are able to provide us with sensors, are able to provide us with PLCs, with systems that are monitoring, that are really collecting data. And that's not our place, but we kind of deal with the fact that we are able to connect with those. So for me, that's one of the most important parts, and the part that takes more time and needs to be well thought, because it will impact all the other steps that you need to follow. So if you look at what we are doing, we are actually focusing on that. So that's where we really expedite the process, which is translating or transforming and aggregating data and connect to any kind of device.
Great response. Thank you, gentlemen. So I'm not sure if the IIoT team can pull the responses from the polls so that we can see that data. If that's not possible, that's obviously fine. But I would say, David, is there a question that you see in the Q&A system here that you would want to respond to? I see a few, but if you can identify a question and respond, that would be great. And then I'll follow up with you, Hugo, as well.
Yeah, I see a question about cybersecurity. I mean, I think this is a key topic. You ultimately, if you have equipment that's 10, 20, 30 years old, it probably wasn't designed to be connected to internet, and really segregating networks and doing the basic, beyond the challenge of the communication protocol. Even if you've got access to those kind of information, those protocols are often unsecure, and you need to have techniques in place to manage the security. And really, we've spent a lot of time and money on cybersecurity to harden our systems, harden our solutions, so that we can limit the risks there. So I think it's always important whenever in any digitalization discussion to highlight this, and it's something that needs to be worked through with the IS team within the company, to ensure that you're working in a way that it is safe. So that's the question that jumped out at me to mention. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Hugo.
Actually, I wanted to pick on the same one. I agree with, I 100% agree with David, but I wanted to add something, which is the focus now on security comes to the fact that we are, let's say, focusing on AI, and we are bringing that information, let's say, outside the network. But the reason the problem was already there, right before AI. So security was already a concern. Don't need to mention that there was even a reactor that in the past was affected by a virus using a SCADA. So this is something that already was a point. Of course, now we need to find a way to let's say, we are sending the data. This is the big difference, that to external providers that we only wanted for ourselves. And this is the main security issue that people were kind of facing. And at the same time, that data will kind of create an outcome that might affect my process. So I'm changing a machine and I might turn on the wrong output. But the question is, did we have encryption in the plant? Was there already a way to connect from external services in a safe and secure way? So that was already there, let's say. So that was a problem that was already there. Now it becomes more important for the society, because you are kind of putting your key decision data in the hands of an external provider that needs to bring intelligence into that. But I think technology will evolve in the way that this will probably run internally, and you will definitely have also on the edge that kind of solution. But the security part of things and the trust environment that you need to create, that's something that the plants were already able to provide. And it brings up a fact that just to finish, brings up a fact that I've been facing for the last 10 years, which is IT managers usually, they ended up trying by safety to block things from running. And now I think there is no chance to do that. So it comes also, there was a lot of backlog, let's say, there, that now people need to create some outcomes out of it.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you all for joining us for this conversation. I think Hugo and David, you did a phenomenal job speaking to the audience on this important topic. Appreciate the opportunity to be part of this panel.